Welcome to the Coach Toolbox. This podcast is for coaches, leaders, and learners at all levels in organizations and in all walks of life. Here, you will get just-in-time learning that is research-based and practice-focused. The goal is personal and professional mastery. And now, our session today. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode. And today's episode is really important because you and I have been experiencing it like never ever before over the last 3 months. And it's leading, working, living through uncertainty. So the topic of our conversation today is leading through uncertainty. And we have an amazing guest with us today. His name is Sakaar Anand. A little bit about him. Sakaar heads the HR for BNY Mellon Technology in India. He has an amazing 24-year track record of success across leading MNCs. Prior to joining BNY Mellon, Sakaar was with CA Technologies, where he held various senior HR roles in India and within the firm's global organizations in the US. Sakaar was also a strategic advisor to the president and chief product officer for CA. Prior to joining CA, Sakaar was the Chief Operating Officer for GE Consumer and Industrial, based in India. Sakaar holds a BTech degree in Mechanical Engineering from NIT in Kurukshetra, a Master's in Information Technology from University of Louisville in Kentucky, and a postgraduate certificate in Business Management from XLRI Jamshedpur. And I am not able to do justice to his background. So what I'll do is I'll put a link to his profile in LinkedIn profile in the podcast description box. Sakaar, welcome.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you for the kind introduction.
And we are going to talk about leading through uncertainty. And so the last few months, all of us have experienced uncertainty at a scale that has been radical and unprecedented in its scale and impact. So while we have all experienced it, can you help us articulate all the areas of our professional and personal life that have been impacted by this uncertainty?
So, Ajay, there is nothing that has not been impacted.
That's so true.
But the way I look at it is that every impact is not bad. We just need to wait and watch on how it all pans out. On the professional front, our offices will never look the same again. For a foreseeable future, we will not see all our colleagues in person. And this would mean that organizations will have to figure out new ways to create that emotional glue which makes us work as a team. On the personal front, especially for a country like India, which thrives on the ethos of a high-touch culture, social distancing will force us to reinvent how we live. But as I said, it is not all that bad. Less workforce in office, more working from home will provide us the much-needed work-life balance, which will boost our emotional well-being and enhance our productivity.
And I love what you said so far about emotional glue and the fact that we are a high touch culture. Go on.
I also, on the positive side, I also see or foresee that we will see lesser traffic on the roads. More people work from home.
That should be good.
Absolutely. India needs that. Come to social distancing again. When I think of commercial establishments, right, it might bring in the system and order that we always long for, and cited examples from the Western world. So in my mind, we will have to wait and watch and see how this all pans out. Our offices would see lesser workforce for a foreseeable future. Our roads will see lesser traffic on the road. Our malls, our commercial establishments will see lesser people out there. So somewhere we'll, over a period of time, we'll strike that balance with regards to, how we stay back home and how we step out, and what the new normal looks like for our country.
So well put. So can you give us a way to understand what is uncertainty?
Uncertainty is a situation where we are going through a change. And in most of the cases, the change is out of our control. It is not initiated by us, and as such, not planned. And we don't know how it will impact the future.
And over the last few months that we've all experienced uncertainty, how have you seen it impact each one of us at individual levels, or each one of us as people, professional? Because you said this is stuff that's now not under our control.
Typical human tendency is to resist change.
Mm-hmm.
When the change is inflicted on us by circumstances that are beyond our control, the resistance is even more higher. And it is this resistance that creates the initial unease, right?
Okay.
And every change brings uncertainty with it. That change is inevitable. So, somewhere we will
Hmm.
have to learn to accept the fact that if it was not this, there could have been something else, maybe at a lesser magnitude, but change and uncertainty are the only constants in life.
Yeah. And my sense is that one of the things this period has brought to the fore or amplified for so many of us different levels is, in addition to the uncertainty, there's also some amount of fear that's there within so many of us. Any thoughts on that?
See, the fear in this particular situation, Ajay, is because besides the uncertainty, there is this pandemic which could lead to people falling sick. God forbid there is a mortality rate associated with this pandemic. So this uncertainty becomes a lot more unprecedented because there is health and life associated with it, and that's where the element of fear comes in. Most of the time, the other uncertainties that we encounter or come across in life don't always have an element of health and mortality to it.
So true. I think that's really an amazing insight. So, before we come to how to manage this uncertainty, what else do you see different in this phase and what's happening with all of us in this phase compared to some other type of uncertainty? For example, just a dot com burst or some war or something like that. What's different this time?
See, in the other uncertainties, whether it's when you say, I'll take the example of a dot com burst. It's more about people reskilling themselves, right? And at that point of time, people know that my current skills may become redundant over a period of time. I need to go learn something new. But when I learn something new, there are plethora of opportunities for me out there, right? In this particular uncertainty, it is, as I said, it is about life, it is about health, and it is less about acquiring skills which will be relevant for the future.
Okay, I get that. Yes, yes. So now that there is this uncertainty, how do we manage through this uncertainty?
Embracing change is the phrase I use for it. Though it is such a predicament for us, but it triggers a chemical reaction of sorts. It creates an acceptance of the unpredictability, of giving ourselves permission to go with the flow despite all our doubts. It is also about change management, and every individual has to find his or her journey through it.
Hmm. Yeah,
And again,
sure.
the current uncertainty, as we said, is exponentially higher in magnitude than other uncertainties that we face in life. But it's not that we have not faced uncertainties in life in the past. Let's just look at our life. We leave home to join college.
Hmm.
We graduate from college to join a job. In our working career, we change jobs multiple times. We move across cities. Everything has an element of uncertainty in it. Just the level of uncertainty is different. But each of them enriches us with an experience which helps us deal with uncertainties in the future with a much more positive mindset.
And like, I mean, even getting married is an uncertainty, right?
Getting married is an uncertainty, having kids is an uncertainty.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
I, I,
absolutely. Both are uncertainty.
I was just trying to stay safe, but you did pull me into that.
Hey, that's all right. You're the one speaking. You're in danger with your spouse, not me. So that's true. I mean, we have dealt with uncertainty in our lives, but this time it seems to be so pervasive. There don't seem to be anchors which are stable. For example, a friend or family or our work or personal interest. All of these things have been disturbed and shaken. Plus there is that undercurrent of fear of health. So it's really unprecedented. And while we say I must embrace change, personally I'm struggling in many areas I know what I should do, but it's not happening. So how can you help me there?
See, when we are dealing with these doubts and insecurities, it's the power of what if which is unleashed. It gives us the powerful gifts of creativity and imagination that creates the new possibilities for us. And again, with the risk of sounding a little philosophical, I would go on, but it teaches us new life skills of being brave, being resilient, and have a better ability to mentally cope with the stress. Now, on the other side, on the contrary, not embracing this only dents our confidence, holds us back from taking risks. I also feel that this uncertainty, given that it's many levels of magnitude higher than any other uncertainty that we have experienced in our life, would help us reach our full potential in some way. And when we all come out of it, few years down the line, many of us who would tell these stories to our grandkids that we lived through this pandemic, I'm sure we would have a strong life lesson to give to our to give to our future generations on how to deal with such situations. And that's the biggest positive that I see in this.
So true. Now, you would have seen your stakeholders, friends across companies, countries. How can you share some examples of people are doing well to cope with this? What people are doing not so well? You don't have to take names and identities, but give us generic learnings that you are seeing of how people are coping with it well, what they are doing, and when people are not coping with it well, what are they doing, not doing?
So I will maybe move away from the current, the current uncertainty which has been, which we are dealing with because of the pandemic situation. I'll tell you something about my past professional life, Ajay. So I used to work for a company which got acquired. From the time the acquisition was announced to the time the acquisition was closed, there was about 6 months in it. Many of us, who were long timers in the organization, made up our minds a lot sooner that we would not be a part of the merged entity. So what we did was we used that 6 month period when the acquisition was actually closing to go out in the market and look for jobs. And we could do it because we had formally communicated to the organization that we do not want to be a part of the merged entity. So it kind of gave us, we were more decisive. It gave us a window of time, still being in the job, to look for a new job. Some of our colleagues who had lesser tenure with that company, they decided to have a wait and watch approach. They wanted to start with the merged entity, then see if it's panning out for them or not, and then decide. Now, many of them who decided to stay back and did not kind of find that the new merged entity was where they would want to work longer. So when they went out to start looking for a job, they were doing it in a much more high risk environment than what we were doing when we decided a lot sooner. So the only thing that I wanted to bring out of this is that different people deal with uncertainties in a different way. Some people make some decisions, they are a lot more decisive, and so what they do is they reduce the variables for them, and as such they have lesser variables to deal with. Some people decide to have a wait and watch approach, and they have a lot more variables to deal with. So in short, my point is that any point of time when we are faced with uncertainties, we need to look at what's a given, and how can I separate the relevant from the irrelevant and move with what's relevant, so that I have lesser decisions to make and I have a much more clearer path in the future to move towards.
That's an excellent example, specifically with looking at one's career. What else comes to mind in terms of, some good ways or some not so effective ways of dealing with the uncertainty, either in general and, of course, amplified to what we are all going through at this point in time?
So again, maybe talking from a business perspective, Ajay, again, and many of us are business leaders. We are either leading a business in an organization or leading a team in an organization. I believe in what I call a 6 step framework. And I shouldn't say it's a 6 step framework because you don't do them in a sequential order, but it's still a
Sure.
six
Yeah.
step, there are still 6 steps in the framework that I typically talk to people about. And And when you are actually leading a team through uncertainty, it is paramount that you not only overcome your fears, but you also help your team overcome their fears. And as a leader, you play a very significant part in enabling your team overcome those fears. So, as thinking human beings, the first and the foremost thing that we need to do in that situation is acknowledge with the organization, acknowledge with the people that there is uncertainty, and you as the leader don't have all the answers.
Wow, that in itself is huge because our understanding and background as leaders is, hey, I'm the guy with all the answers. And that would be really a huge shift for me to do, to be so open and honest and vulnerable to say, hey, man, I am struggling myself. I don't have the answer.
Absolutely, sometimes vulnerability in itself is good leadership. Showing your insecurities to your
So
team
true.
is
So
good
true.
leadership. To add on to it,
What else?
we should encourage people to participate in a discussion. The discussion that would lead to collective thinking and lead to answers. The answers that I individually don't have, but the collective wisdom of me and my team together would have those answers. Now to encourage people to participate in that discussion, we need to communicate with people more often, and we need to have that communication in an open and transparent manner, which will build that trust and inspire that perseverance in the team. So we need to make sure that it's a dialogue. It's not a one way communication where I'm telling the team always what's happening. It's a forum where we encourage dialogue, we encourage collective thinking, and then arrive at answers.
Okay. Okay. So just something around that, and correct me if I'm wrong, or let's say, is that, don't you think we are right now zoomed out? We have people working from early morning to late evening, communicating via Zoom, and we just seem to be on Zoom all the time. So is that the way for communication? Is that an indicator of good communication? Any thoughts around that?
See, we have to use any digital channel that is available to us, right? And if that digital channel can enable both voice and video, then there's nothing like it. So we have to make the most of whatever is there for us, which can take us as close to that human interaction as possible. So I like the phrase that you use, zoomed out. I would just say that we need to start thinking that we are zoomed in,
Zoomed in. All right,
right?
I
Because
like that.
that's the
All
best way
right,
for us to keep in touch with our people. And I would encourage
absolutely.
any leader in the industry, anywhere, any industry, any domain of the industry, to use technology and be as digital as you can be, to to step out of this situation unscathed.
Absolutely. What else? You were talking about, how we can cope more effectively through this uncertainty.
Yeah. So also we need to tell the team what we are doing and why we are doing it. So as we are going through the uncertainty, or we're dealing with uncertainty, we need to keep telling the team in the most transparent manner as to what we are doing and what's the thought process behind it, as to why we are doing it. At the same time, we can't be rigid, because, as I said, we already have acknowledged that we don't have all the answers. So, which means that through the collective wisdom, we are trying to find answers, and as those answers are coming, we are trying things. So, we need to be as nimble as possible to try new things, change course if something is not working out, and that's what I call fail fast and fail forward. So
Hmm.
don't stay with something for too long if you realize too soon that it's not working out. And it's always okay to kind of acknowledge that we tried something, it didn't work out, we are changing course now. And while we are doing it, as we said, that it's very important to inspire trust and perseverance, we need to celebrate short-term wins as we move through this uncertainty. And there are things which we try and they work out. It's very important to call out those short-term wins, and also call out the right behaviors which help enable those short-term wins, and give credit to people where it's due. It all kind of builds that camaraderie, the confidence, and helps people persevere through the uncertainty. So, as I said, it's a six-step model. If I were to quickly summarize it, I would say acknowledge that we are in a phase of uncertainty. We don't have all the answers. Encourage people to participate in a discussion. Uh, Communicate often in a transparent manner. Make it a dialogue. Tell the team where we are going. what are we doing and why are we doing it, be nimble so that you are quick to course correct, and finally celebrate short term wins to inspire confidence and trust.
So true. Now, in the old days, celebration was so much easier. We'd bring a team cake or go out for lunch or go out for dinner or just clap or give cards. So, celebration was so much easier to do. How do we now celebrate in this virtual environment?
Zoom is the answer again.
Zoom. I hear Zoom parties are happening these days.
Yeah, and that's the way to do it. Like get on, if you can get voice and video together, get on, play games. You're able to see people, uh, recognize folks who have done something good. I would even encourage virtual happy hours. Just get your favorite drink in your hand, get on the get on the video, and have a light-hearted chat, share jokes. Put your head down and talk about anything under the sun, but not work. It's important that we do those things. Wherein we again come back and realize that there is life beyond work, and people that we work with, we connect with them also beyond work.
So true. So true. So you've given us these 6 steps. Share some examples of what you see happening around you, not necessarily in your environment only, but across industry. Any examples of how people are doing this, how they're doing it well, not so well? What's
So again,
happening?
Ajay, I'll take you back to the same example where I talked about, in my past life, wherein I was a part of an organization which got acquired by a different company, and there was a 6 month gap between when the acquisition was announced and the acquisition actually closed. The head of HR of our company lived these 6 steps amazingly. And somewhere I should say that I have picked these 6 steps, seeing him execute these. He didn't call out these 6 steps, but the way he was doing them. So what he did was, the day the acquisition was announced, there were a lot of employee questions, and he created a channel where people could send him questions directly. So people could log into that chat framework, send him questions. It wasn't a live chat, but questions would be posted to him, and he would answer those questions. And what he was doing was, he made it a dialogue in a way that sometimes when there were no questions coming to him, he would post questions to people and ask them how they were thinking. Like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? This is what I was thinking. Do you have an answer for me? This is how I was thinking to proceed in this situation. Do you think it's right? But that gentleman, what he used to do was, he would make sure that every question that comes to him is answered. Whenever the executive team would make a decision, he would make sure that the decision is posted out there with whatever information is out there. And if there were pieces in the puzzle that were missing, he would call out those missing pieces as well. So again, he was telling people that we have thought through some things. Some things are still not there. If we would try some certain things, that would not work out, or if there was some question that employees had, a suggestion that the employees had, which was taken to the management of the company that was acquiring us, and those suggestions were shot down, he would be as transparent as possible. He would come back and tell people that this was presented, but this was shot down for so and so reason. If somebody was suggesting something and the suggestions were being accepted, he would in public go and come and recognize that individual, saying that this person suggested this was accepted by the new management, and this is how it benefits the population of the existing company. So this is, the prime example which will stay with me forever. He was the head of HR of a previous organization. I myself, being in HR, ever in that situation, I would follow his approach, and make these 6 principles or this 6 step model to life.
That is awesome. So you have experienced these 6 steps in a previous period of uncertainty, and I'm sure you're practicing this right now, and you have shared this with us. So we ourselves are able to have some action plan or some framework within which to respond to whatever would be happening to us as leaders. So thank you so much for this very practical way of doing it. And it's a proven thing because you've seen it happen. So we're coming close to the end of our time, but before we end, you said that you mentioned earlier that when we look back, we will have certain life lessons for our grandkids. So if for your own grandkids, what are some lessons that you would share with them either in their workplace and personal life? What are some lessons that you would share with your grandkids?
Well, Ajay, I am still quite a distance away from grandkids. I have a young child who is 11 years old. And right now, I am trying to give some lessons to her. Not very successful yet, but I'm
Okay.
trying to give some lessons to her. But the biggest lesson that I give her every time is I tell her that never get in your comfort zone. And honestly, I don't know if what I say makes sense to her at this point of time. I'm sure it will someday. But my point to people always is that the day we start feeling comfortable with the present, we need to start challenging ourselves to do things that are otherwise would have been uncomfortable for us to do. Because if we don't cause this disruption, then someone else will. And if somebody else causes this disruption, then we'll be playing a catch-up game. So it's better that we disrupt it in a planned manner ourselves. Things around us, whether we like it or not, things around us are changing at a rapid pace. And if we stay where we are, we'll be left behind. We need to move faster than the change around us. And that speed would always be unnerving. That speed would cause us that discomfort, and we need to become comfortable with that discomfort.
Okay. All right. So really to not get stuck to our comfort zone. So as we bring our conversation to a close, I really want to ask you one question, and it's a little personal. So for yourself, for Sakaar Anand, the person and the professional, what are you doing now to gear up not only for this phase, but for life post COVID-19?
I am actually using this time to do things which I always wanted to do, but the old normal was not allowing me to do those things.
How cool. Give us examples.
So there was a time when I used to cook, and it wasn't that I always liked cooking. It was an extended phase of a bachelor stay in the United States of America, which forced me to cook. But then I started liking it, and then I got married, and my wife, who's a much better cook than me, spoiled me with all the good food that she used to cook. But I am using this time wherein we have no domestic help at home, and we all need to share or pitch in with our fair share of work. I'm trying to get back to cooking and enjoying it because I now cook with my wife and daughter along with me in the kitchen. At the same time, I used to actually at one point of time be a poet. When I was back in college, I used to write poetry in Hindi, and my last 20 plus years of professional life has just taken that away from me. Not just poetry, but my command on Hindi as well, because all I do now is to write emails in English. I am trying to get back to that phase wherein I do sometimes sit down with a pencil and a paper in my hand, and whatever thoughts are coming in my mind, just try and write them in as clean should Hindi as possible.
Right.
So I'm just trying to indulge back in some old passion, so that I have fond memories of this lockdown phase that we are all going through, and I just hope that it would keep me in a positive frame of mind, which will just help me get back to whatever the new normal is with full vigor.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that on such a personal note. And I think this is a great time to bring our conversation to an end. Thank you, Anand, for being open and honest about what's working, what's not working, and how we can manage through the 6 steps this period of uncertainty, and also for sharing what you are doing, as a person and professional for yourself. So we look forward to having you on the show once again with us. It's been a pleasure having you.
Ajay, thank you very much for inviting me. The pleasure was all mine. It was actually a privilege to be on this show, talking to you and sharing my personal story at times and my professional story at times.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ajay. Take care.
And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Please connect with us on coachtoolbox@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and review this channel. Details of our ICF approved coach training programs and our services as executive coaches and coaching supervisors are on www.globalcoachtrust.org. See you in our next session.